Welcome back. So one of the first people that actually started doubting the Yamasita story was Steve Pinsinskis, Steve Pinkins, a reporter for the Philippine News, and he just started questioning why Marcos always talked about finding Yamashita's gold and all the gold he was finding, but he would never talk about corruption in his cabinet. And his findings, so he started doing research. His findings were published in the Philippine News in 24 parts, including photos and details. And so he's always was leery. Now, when the Laura Langley Agreement came into effect, Ferdinand Marcos became the silent partner of a lot of businesses, and he will actually at one time own 60% of the Philippine economy. So 60% all the money. So like in the United States right now, it's like $1.3 trillion a year, if not more. So that means Marcos would have had something like $800 million, $800 billion going to him per year. That's how much money he was siphoning out of the country. And so one of the companies he could not get a hold of was Manila Power. So in order for him to get a hold of Manila Power, he had the son Eugenio Lopez kidnapped. And the price for his freedom was Manila Power. And so the family was contacted, and they agreed to sell the Manila Power to Ferdinand Marcos. However, Marcos only paid like $100, $200 as a down payment, and he offered to buy it. And so once the transfer came by, Eugenio escaped, and Steve Pinsinakis actually helped him escape and go to Hong Kong and the United States. So he actually helped out Sergio Osmena the third, the senator who helped Roger Rojas, and helped him actually leave the country also, because there were death sentences or death wishes or whatever you call it, hits put on a lot of people in the Philippines. And so as soon as Eugenio escaped, Marcos never paid another dollar for Manila Power and kept the company. They eventually sued and got the rights back after Marcos left to the ownership of the company. So at this time, Imelda actually started buying expensive jewelry. When she left, all the crates that they brought to the United States, only one or two were personal items for everyone else. She brought a jewelry with her, and it was actually auctioned off in the Philippines. I believe they got something like $300 million for all her jewelry, and she sued the Philippine government saying that was hers and they didn't have the right to take it. So she was always suing the government, and she was actually charged with corruption and found guilty. But in the Philippines, as soon as you reach a certain age, you can no longer go to jail. So she actually escaped any prison sentence. So she went on a jewelry spree and went to Russia and bought a 350,000 Ming period table, Gucci watches, a wood side table, and so she was in New York, and this is, I don't know, you'd say her mentality, but she bought all the stuff, and it was over $200,000, and the sales tax was $15,000, but she didn't want to pay the sales tax, so she said it was for the Philippine embassy, and they're exempt from paying sales tax. So all the furniture was sent to the Philippine embassy in New York, and then it was transferred over to her house after it arrived. And when that was done, it wasn't good enough for her. She spent $2.7 million for herself, including a $1.1 million platinum bracelet from Bulgari. So Marcos family opened the Venduz, in Venduz, the Azio Foundation, and it was later renamed to Verso. Scolari was named to Velamo, and Zandi was renamed to Winthrop. Belitzar Aquino was the collecting kickbacks at this time. Now remember I was saying that Marcos didn't make his money from Yamasita's gold. He made it from kickbacks. And the public highway funds that they were getting, Marcos was getting between 10 to 15% kickback on all of it. And there was a story, I don't know how true it was, like in Angeles City, the streets were really bad, a lot of potholes and everything. And so the U.S. military came and said they needed training for rapid runway repair. Normally they would blow up a small area, like a little hole, and they say, go fix it as soon as, let's see how fast they can fix it. So in order for them to get practice in, they decided they'd just pave the streets in Angeles City in order to get practice. But the mayor said, no, give us the money and we will do it because Filipinos need the work. So the military gave them the money and it never went anywhere. So they were getting over 10 to 15% kickbacks on just the highway funds. And it was reported that he deposited over $400,000. This is back in 1978. $400,000 in an account in Berlin, and so that tells you there was a lot of money going on. So by 1978, the Marcos family began to buy more real estate in the United States to give to their children. Now, a lot of this was actually repossessed by the U.S. government, sold, and the money was given to the Philippine government. One was on Capture Drive in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is very expensive now. And it was used by Bong's servants, so they actually bought a house for his servants, his maid service, and all the other stuff, as he studied. So people that were working around him, cleaning his room, probably doing his homework and everything. And so within a year, they actually bought 2 more properties. And these were actually put into the name of Tristan Belpat. She was actually head of the American Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines. So they were using other people's names to put stuff in. And then they also bought Princeton Pike, which was used by Amy as she attended Princeton University, and Pendleton Way used by Bong Bong as he studied. And these were $1 million properties, by the way. In 1979, Imelda was chairwoman of the cabinet of the Committee of the Philippines that oversaw all ministries in the Philippines, and she was given task to create a program called Bliss. And it was supposed to take control over the economic and social development of the country. But within a few years, it was marked by a lot of scandal, and all the money that went to it disappeared. Another thing that happened was the Philippines is known for wood carvings. And it wound up, the Philippines for a while there had a very bad problem with all the trees disappearing, because the trees were cut down, but there were none being planted, so they were just destroying all the trees. So they got to the point where almost they destroyed the whole wood carving industry. And several $1 million that was in our budget just mysteriously disappeared. So in Manila in 1979, to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary, the Marcos family spent nearly $5 million, including a silver carriage to draw them, and buy 8 white horses to bring them to their anniversary party. 2 years later, representatives from Standard Chartered Hong Kong Bank showed up. Let's see what we got here. Vine and Lei Wah Hung visited the Malacanang Palace and met with the Marcoses. And they proposed to write up several trusts for the family and everything. And 2 weeks later, Vine Vine returned to the Philippines and met with Chief Financial Advisor Marcos Rolando Calbud and his supervisor Jose Campos. The two trust accounts were then finalized and put in the Security Bank for Security Bank and Trust, SBTC Bank in the Philippines. Campos signed for the Marcoses. The two accounts were placed under control by the bank, but ultimate control was directed by Marcos himself. So basically, he put money in there. Soon, Ferdinand and Imelda would open up additional trust funds with SBTC with account numbers 7710 to 7790, with a deed of trust issued each account to Standard Chartered Bank and Security Bank. One account, which included between Beneficio Investments and Panaluminan Corporation, SBT was owned by Beneficio Investment, but names were held by Security chartered by Ferdinand and Imelda. So they would open bank accounts up, put it into the bank's trust. So they would be like a fiduciary where they would invest it and everything. But Marcos actually had ultimate control over the bank accounts. So during this time, Marcos began to beef up accounts. New accounts began to open up in Switzerland and London, Cayman Islands, all over the world. So Marcos has started to open up bank accounts all over the world. So wound up they had 38 bank accounts open in the United States and 9 bank accounts in England, Manhattan, New York. Each bank account deposits were getting monthly money coming in. This is in 78. So Lucio Tan, the owner of, this is where it gets to the point where I'm trying to say Marcos did not make the majority of his money on Yamasita's gold. Lucio Tan, the owner of Asia Brewery and the Philippine Airlines, now was paying $5 million a year. This is 78 now. $5 million a year to Marcos. And it gave Tan power and position in the country to get any law or anything changed or anything he would need because he was paying it. So Marcos would get kickbacks from all the laws and all the whatever you call it. Marcos was getting kickbacks from all the companies that Tan owned, and he wound up he was getting 60% ownership of Philippine Airlines and Asia Brewery. And it winds up that during this time, after they left, Imelda said that she owned 60% of Philippine Airlines and wanted her shares back. She wanted the money back. And they said, Lucio Tan said, see you in court. So Tan was actually no exception to paying bribes. Silverio of Delta Motors was paying Marcos $23 million a year. So right now, Marcos is making $30 million a year off of 3 companies. And the funds were deposited in SBTC accounts in Hong Kong and transferred to Swiss bank accounts controlled by the foundations in Liechtenstein. So right there is $30 million a year, not including what else was missing. Because between 74 and 78, no gold was actually deposited into the bank accounts or the National Depository. So, Gapud, Gapud would strike deals as the Laurel-Langley Agreement. Like I said, Marcos was trying to obtain 50% of ownership of all businesses that were formerly owned by foreign entities. And so Marcos was able to control most of these businesses. So Marcos went after big business in the Philippines, and hundreds of $millions a year went to Marcos's bank accounts. Right now, I just showed you $28 million. So $100 million per year was going to Marcos. So this was 78 to about 86, 8 years. That's $1 billion right there. And that's just $100 million a year. Imagine $500 million a year. We're talking $4 billion right there. Let's see. So what he used, what Marcos really used was bearer bonds. And basically, like Philippine Airlines would give him stock certificates saying 1 million shares of stock. And you don't sign it. So it's a blank form, but you have it. And you say, okay, I'm the owner, but I haven't signed it. So you're legally the owner for holding it. So Philippine Airlines was giving him money every year. And so this way he would remain anonymous. Now, so at this time, he was in control of 60% of the Philippine economy. So say the Philippine economy was $1 billion a year. He was making $600 million a year. And that doesn't include the gold that was missing between 74 and 78. And it could be even gold was missing after 78. So this means banking, mining, insurance companies, shipping companies, agricultural, you name it. If it made money, Marcos was part of it. He owned 60% of it. So one story is in Angeles City in Olongapo, there were thousands of bars, and the bar owners had to pay a fee to the local mayors. If they weren't paying to the local mayors, it's to the local police, and the police would pay the local mayors. So the police would come in and collect it. And Marcos would receive a cut of that money. So if the bar owner refused to pay, they would send soldiers or police in, and they just shoot up the place and smash all the beer bottles and everything. And they couldn't open for the day. So the bar might lose $500, $600, $700 that day alone. So he was controlling the racketeering and extortion business. And now he had a protection racket. I want $300 a month because I'm going to protect you from what's going to happen if you don't pay me $300 a month. So he had a protection racket, racketeering, and extortion. That's what Marcos was doing at this time. So taking a cue from international markets on the gold reserves from the past, the Central Bank of the Philippines saw its first increase from 1978. They saw 8 metric tons being deposited into the bank, which is much average. And this time, the price of gold rose to $875 an ounce. Now, the Philippines mines anywhere from 4 to 24 tons of gold per year. From 1974 to 1977, not 1 ounce of gold was deposited into the Philippine Central Bank. Now, can you imagine this? Okay, let's just say 24. Let's just cut it in half, say 12 tons. 74, 75, 76, 77, 4 years. 4 years at 12 tons is 48 metric tons at $900 an ounce. So you're talking, let's just say $1,000 an ounce to make it even. So $1,600 an ounce. 4 metric tons, times that by 16, so we're talking, so let's say $20,000 a pound. So 2,200 is $440,000 for 1 metric ton. Okay, so can you imagine 24 of those are 48 million? Let me just add this up just to be on the safe side. So we got, we'll do $875 an ounce So that's $14,000 a pound. So it's $30 million a metric ton, and 24 metric tons is $739 million. That's what was missing out of the Philippines, $739 million. Plus Marcos was making, let's say, $100 million. So if you add another $150 million, that's $1 billion right there. That's what Ferdinand Marcos took just in 4 years. $1 billion in the Philippine economy. So that's going to do it on this episode. Thank you very much.